Hello and welcome to this month's edition of Conscious Connections, where we explore soul centered conversations that awaken truth, inspire healing, and remind us of our divine power. I am your host, Dr. Deborah Carson, the founder of the Fear to Freedom Project, and each month I like to sit down with beautiful souls who are transforming lives through their gifts, their story, and their wisdom. Together, we move beyond fear right into freedom, one conscious conversation at a time. And today, I'd like to welcome my neuro spicy oracle goddess sister, Miss Esther Milanzi, an intuitive coach, writer, educator based out of Bali, weaving together ancestral wisdom, creativity, and human design to help others return to ease, alignment, and self trust. Through her work, Esty reminds us that healing happens when we honor our natural rhythm and live softly by divine design. Welcome back to the Fear to Freedom Project, my sister. How
Thank
are
you.
you?
It's so wonderful to be here. It's so wonderful to see you again. I've missed you.
I
It's
know I
been so
miss you.
yeah.
Last time we were together, we were with a whole panel. So, yeah,
It was
you
so much
are.
fun. It was so beautiful, and I still think about all the insights and the wisdom that came through from that
Ye-
collaboration.
yeah. What you doing out there in Bali? What time is it?
It is 9:30 AM. I just finished my qigong practice and
Oh,
making some
yeah.
tea for my hubby. He's off work today because it is a Balinese holiday. It's called
Oh,
Galungan. And this happens every 6 months, and it's when the Balinese honor their ancestors for, overcoming evil and allowing goodness to prevail, and they celebrate and they honor their ancestors. So it's a really beautiful, really potent time right now in Bali.
that sounds so good. That sounds really nice.
Yeah.
Wow. So you have been a lot of places, my love. You've been from North Carolina to South Africa to Bali. You are just traveling the world, shaping lives one woman at a time. How has this travel, like, expanded and shaped your work with women?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think when I left America and I applied for my Fulbright, I one of the things that I talked about is wanting to work with women, with girls, and helping to develop leadership skills and literacy skills. And over the time, that has shifted and changed, and that's still the I think core of it. But what
Mhm.
I'm noticing and realizing from each place that I visited is that in order to be self leaders, to be a leader of ourselves, to be the architect of our lives, we have to really learn how to trust ourselves. And I had to kind of go on my self trust journey in each country that I lived in. And I think I discovered
Wow.
different parts of myself. And in South Africa, it's where I did a lot of ancestral healing, visiting my family, visiting my father's grave, meeting my siblings. And then really just feeling this cultural and, like, ancestral awareness awaken inside me, and then in Thailand, which is where I went next, there was just this, like, inner child healing that happened as I started to live more free, and I started to release a lot of conditioning that I'd had from growing up in America, and learning how to just, make mistakes and be messy and not shame myself and not be shamed by others was so potent, and then I found my creative expression was coming through more and more, and I was less afraid to share and be seen. And then when we moved to Bali, and this is where we've lived the longest, we've been here about 8 years, that's where the deep shadow work started to come through. And my husband and I talk about this all the time. And it's like there's certain parts of our healing journey that we don't feel ready to do until we feel safe. And I felt so safe. I felt so safe in my career. I felt so safe with my husband. I felt so safe. Bali really gave me permission to look at the darker, deeper parts of myself that I was afraid to look at. And I didn't feel safe to do that healing work. And so now when I work with women, it is looking at, okay, what are all the conditional things around you? What's your environment? Who are the people in your life? Where can we cultivate some safety so that way you can find that self trust, that you can find that space to sit with yourself and not be ashamed and that it takes a lot of work to decondition
What?
shame. Shame is a huge thing that we have decided to use as a weapon against, empowering women and just humans in general.
Yeah, and again, we've used it against ourselves. So, yeah. Man, that's beautiful. Talk about the shadow work. Now that is some work. It really, really it's work and it takes commitment to do it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like commitment to yourself. So, I love that. Now you talk about the human design and divine design and you integrate that into your work. And so for people, who have no idea about that concept, speak about that a little bit.
Sure. So, human design has taken a bunch of different systems that have been created all over the world, the I Ching from China, the Kabbalah, astrology, and the chakra systems from the Hindu culture. It's taken all of these different systems and it's looked at them in an integral way and said, you know, we're all out here, just like we have our own unique fingerprint. We all have our own unique blueprint of how we engage with each other energetically. And when I first learned about it, I really appreciated the ways that it helped me to kind of classify. I've always loved personality tests, the Myers-Briggs, all of those different things have always just
Yes.
helped me. I'm a puzzle person. I like to see, okay, this works here and that doesn't work there. And why does that person get along with this person and this person doesn't get along with this person, but then the other two people get along. And so when I started to learn about human design, it started to make sense to me of, why do certain people create friction in themselves when they're with other people? And human design shows you all of these different centers that we have in our bodies. And if you have some closed or if you have some open, you are more likely to influence other people. So if I have an open head, and I also have an open emotional center, my solar plexus. So that means I'm really influenced by other people's emotions. And it's why, when you hear people say, oh, I'm an empath, they probably have an open solar plexus. And when you find people who are super open minded and like to look at different belief systems, they probably have an open head center. And so it's like you can start to learn and understand different foundational pieces of ourselves. And what's great about human design is even if your blueprint is different and unique, it basically just helps you tell a story about who you are. And then you can
Mhm.
use that to really figure out how to cultivate who you want to be and where you already have support in your design. And then where are the areas where there's that shadow work, there's those lessons that you've come here to learn and it shows that all in the chart. And so it's really beautiful. It's really fun. Every client I've ever used it with is just like blown away. And even the woman who taught me about human design back in 2019, 2018. And when I first learned about it, I was like, this is not right. This is not me because I was masking as a different type. I was masking as a
Oh.
manifesting generator, which is the person who goes and does all the things and changes their mind and hops back and forth and is just like a little energizer bunny. And I was trying to do that, but I was constantly getting sick. I was constantly getting burnt out. I didn't have the energy to sustain that type of lifestyle. But my mantras back then were always fake it till you make it and I'll sleep when I'm dead. And so, then listen, sis. And then I started thinking about the fact that I was a projector and that's someone who's meant to guide, that's someone who's meant to rest, that's someone who's meant to really wait for invitations before they go and do the big things. And that to me was like, there's no way. Because to me, I had been taught that laziness was bad. So I was like, I had internalized shame around laziness, which means I had
Mm,
internalized shadow around the word rest. And so I had to do so much deconditioning work to really allow myself to rest guilt free. And when I started doing that, I realized that's actually where my energy comes from. That's where my invitations and abundance come from. It's when guilt
mhm.
free rest equals
Yes.
abundance and resources for me. When I rest is usually like when I take off time and I rest and I'm not looking at work, I'm just resting and I'm enjoying myself. That's when I look at my email and I'm like 3 people just booked. Somebody just paid me, $500 and I'm like, "Whoa, this is actually
Good.
wild and beautiful." And so learning how to use that to go back to what I was saying is the woman who taught me it, she's now hired me to teach her about the quantum human design, whereas the traditional human design teaches you about the blueprint and the shadow
Mhm.
work that you need to do. And then the quantum human design really, once you understand that, you integrate those lessons, it helps you to work on what is your life purpose here? What have you come to create? You're in co creation with God, you're in co creation with the universe. And what is your life story? What is your purpose? And how can you really infuse energy into that in a way that feels like flow for you versus friction?
So how are your clients how are they able to, like, integrate their human design? So once they go through whatever it is that they have to go through in order to see this human design, because you were talking about the shadows that came up for you, and
Yeah.
so I'm sure that that's happening for some clients. How are
Yeah.
they able to integrate that? Like, sometimes hearing the truth about yourself is not always easy.
So, and that's why when I actually do human design work, especially when I'm working with a client long term, we actually don't look at human design for a few sessions because what I
Mhm.
really want to come through first is where are you experiencing pain now? Where are you experiencing friction now? Let's look at that. Let's look at the inner child work. And then we look at the human design to see, okay,
Mhm.
does any of this match up? And often when it does, it's like there's this light bulb moment for them, or there's this feeling of validation of like, I thought I was crazy, or, I
Mm.
knew that I didn't need to get advice from some people. So, like the woman I was talking about, she is a mental projector, which basically means that her authority, she doesn't need advice from anybody else. She just needs to hear herself speak. So, when she calls people and says, hey, I have this dilemma, she doesn't need any advice from people. She just needs to hear herself speak and she needs to speak to somebody else to reflect back to her what she's saying. And so when we discovered that in her chart, she had an emotional release and was like, "Oh my gosh, like I knew this."
Good.
But I didn't realize, and so that's what really happens is there's so many people who have these, like, first is validation, and validation is so important because we're gaslit by society all the time of like, "No, you can't do that." Like a manifesting generator, they can create a project and then they can abandon it, but society has told us we have to stick with something and finish it and complete it, and so a person who grew up as a kid and was like, "I wanna do dance," and then after a few weeks, they're like, "Okay, now I wanna do pottery," or "Now I wanna do martial arts," and the parents that told them, "Hey, no, you have to stick with this. You've chosen to do this." There was probably a lot of sorrow or grief for them because they in themselves knew, "No, I don't have to do this." But conditioning, and it's not the fault of the parents. That's what we've all been taught. And so being able to get that permission slip to be who they are then gives them a chance and to like really just feel safe in their body. And again, that's the big intention for me is for clients to feel safe, to be themselves. And then once that happens, if there is any change they want to make in their lives, that's when we make the change. But one of the things I tell them all the time is we can't harm ourselves into change. So you have to have self acceptance first before you can do any type of change work.
That sounds funny because my daughter used to always want to do something different. And I probably was well, I mean, I just let her do it, but I was like, "Okay, like, are you not gonna stick with this?" I used to just be like, "Okay, alright, we're gonna do something else." I mean, she wanted to do all the things, like and she's still kinda like that, She is really she can beautifully weave so many artistic things into her life, and she's good at them. I mean, she's good at, like, all of them. So, yeah, I don't think I said, "No, you gotta stick with it," but I was a couple times I was like, "Are you not like you don't wanna stay?"
Of
Yeah,
course,
that's
and for other types, it
yeah,
makes no sense, it's like we look at somebody who does that and we're like, "What are you doing?" But for them, it just like that's what their joy is, and it actually
yeah.
allows them to experience lots of different flavors of life.
Mhm, and experience that the multidimensional them.
Mhm.
Because we are multidimensional in some, in all the ways. So you work with your ancestors and you honor ancestral wisdom, through your work. And I do too as well. So what have your ancestors taught you about ease? What if they
Like,
taught you about freedom? What if they taught you about fear?
I mean, I think one of the biggest things that's come through for me when I've been working with my ancestors is that I'm not doing this alone. These life challenges that we all experience, I don't have to carry it by myself. And I think we've been
Yeah.
taught in society that, especially growing up in Western culture or growing up in the US, it's like there is this like badge of honor that we get when we accomplish things on our own and when we don't receive help. And I think the biggest thing that my ancestor work has taught me is that asking for help and receiving help is what is ease, and it is what abundance is. It's knowing that I'm not here to do all of this by myself.
Yeah.
I'm not designed to do it all by myself. I'm meant to support other people in a very specific way, and other people are meant to support me in a very specific way. And when I release the need to prove that I did all of this by myself, I am my ability to hold and to support is strengthened and is fortified, and I'm rooted. And when things go wrong, or when things don't go right in like the way that I would define right in the past or successful in the past, I'm able to feel supported and safe that no matter what happens, it's going to
Hmm.
be okay, and it's a part of my life story, my life journey. And yeah, there's just like this level of not needing to control everything because I'm
Yeah.
not trying to. I know that I don't need to, and all of the different opportunities that are out there that we can sometimes get afraid of missing out on. I remember one of the biggest lessons that came through for me with my work with the ancestors was around creativity. And I had all these ideas, and I was feeling really, people tell you not to share your ideas because if you share your ideas, someone's going to steal it, or it's not going to come through, or there's a lot of fear around sharing. And what I've learned is that in the sharing, I'm releasing the need to be the one to do, because potentially I'm only the messenger sometimes for these creative ideas that are coming through. I don't have the capacity or their energy to activate on every single idea I have, because that's one of my gifts is I'm an idea person. And so learning that me sharing ideas is actually my gift to
Hmm.
the world, and that if somebody else takes that idea, that's good. That's beautiful. That means that it's coming to fruition. The thing that needed to come through and be birthed is able to be birthed. So just kind of like releasing this need to have the idea, build the idea, execute the idea, review the idea, being the judge, jury, executioner, just being all the things is not necessary. It's like sometimes you're just one part of the life cycle of a seed. Maybe in this situation, I'm meant to make the soil fertile. Maybe in this situation, I'm meant to plant the seed. Maybe in this, and there's just releasing the need to be a part of every single part of the process and trusting that there's like this like divine harmonious thing that's gonna happen in collaboration. And so that's, I would say, the most beautiful thing that I've been taught by my ancestors.
Yeah.
And that has what has allowed me to have ease and less fear and to feel free and to feel like I can follow. And there are some divine threads that come through that I am seeing through, but it's because I trust that the ones that I'm not supposed to, I release that. I'm not holding on, gripping onto things that aren't in alignment.
Yeah, and that's freedom. I'm really proud of you. I really am. That is, I'm so proud of you because that is freedom. We are not here alone and we don't have to do it alone. And we have been carrying the bag. And so when I tell you for me that that is freedom, knowing that my ancestors have my back and my front and my side, not just my ancestors, like the ones that have lived on Earth, but also the ones that never even made it to Earth and have no intentions on coming here, right? Those ancestors, those star beings, right? So, yeah, I'm glad to hear you say that. So, the neurospicy oracle, that's really intriguing. Like, where did you get that name from? And how does that approach to embracing like neurodiversity, how does that reflect in your approach to neurodiversity?
Yeah.
The
So
neurospicy oracle.
yeah,
You got your
I
cards?
I do, I have my cards. I have,
Good. I'm probably gonna need a pulling.
yeah, I have tons of cards, so we can choose in a moment, but the Neurospicy Oracle came to be because I found out I was on the autism spectrum and ADHD back in, like, during COVID times, and it was really eye-opening for me. It was really, again, that validation, that permission slip that I needed to say, okay, I've been pushing trying to be this one way, but actually, like, it's okay that when I go to a big event and there's a lot of people, I bring something to disassociate. And when I was a kid, it was books. And as I got older, it became creativity tools. So, like, if I was at a party and there was a bunch of people, I'd be the one in the corner coloring and giving other people the other intuitives, the other neurospices that I could tell were struggling to be in that space. I'd give them those tools too. And then now it's become my oracle cards and, giving a way for people to connect and go deeper. And so as I learned about that, on the same token, I was also learning about my intuitive gifts and I was learning about how, things were coming through when I was journaling and things were coming through when I was doing oracle. And so it's really just been this beautiful appreciation and
Mhm.
awareness of who I've always been, but just like really like reclaiming these parts of myself that I felt ashamed to be and ashamed to kind of embrace because they felt outside of the norm, that fear of being vilified as a witch or something evil because I am
Mm.
embracing and really stepping into my gifts. And it's been a scary journey, but it's also been really beautiful. And the people who've come to me, I've had many clients who've come to me and have told me that they've heard me talk about my journey of becoming, accepting being neurodivergent. And it's helped them to feel like safe to explore those parts of themselves. And same with the intuition work. I've had a lot of people who've come to me that, I had a really big background in Christianity in my younger years up until my mid 20s. And so, a lot of people who've come to me being like, hey, I'm in the church, but I think there's more to God than this. And what does
Yeah.
this, but I'm afraid. And, I see you sharing your journey and sharing the things that have worked and that, the ways in which that you've deepened your relationship. And I want that as well. And like, how do I trust my own intuition and how do I trust my relationship with God? And so it's been a really beautiful experience being able to, give people permission slips. And again, it's all going back to that word safety. It's like being safe
Yeah.
to be who you are. And that's so important.
Yeah, it is. I'm glad. Journaling. Let's go to journaling because I've come to your journaling circles and I love to journal. I have been journaling like for a long time. And I think about the fact that I make that an intervention for my clients all the time. But I think that people just kind of look at, yeah, journaling. I don't really like it. I don't you know, tried it, and I really honor it. How is journaling a portal for remembering, for healing? How is that a portal? I want people to know, whoever's looking at that, how it is become a portal for remembering who we are and for healing those wounds that we have.
I would say that journaling became a tool for my healing when I listened to The Artist's Way. I would go on my morning walks in Thailand from the house to work because it was like I can't think it was like a 20-minute walk. And so I would listen. Somebody had gifted me the audiobook, so I'd listen on my walks. And I didn't feel safe journaling because I had an experience back in college where somebody had discovered my writing, like one of my
Mm.
journals. And, I had a whole Harriet the Spy moment where I was like, oh my gosh, people saw my writing and now I'm going to be judged and I'm going to be shunned. And so I realized that I had stopped telling myself the truth on the page because I was
Mm.
afraid, one, that somebody was going to see it. And then two, I was lying to myself about a lot of things. And so to sit with ourselves and be uncensored doesn't feel safe always. And so that is something I had to navigate. And so what I started doing is I would voice note myself on my walks. and I would voice note myself because I didn't have to look at it. So then I didn't feel like, it was that safety piece. I didn't have to see it. And then Julia Cameron recommends that you look back at your writing 2 weeks later. And the reason why is that way you can start to pick up on patterns. You can start to see your intuition come through. You can start to see unhealed parts of yourself that are coming through over and over again, questions that you have that need ideas and seeds that are wanting to be planted, but just haven't found the right way to take root. And so I would listen back on my walks to myself 2 weeks later. And the reason why it's 2 weeks is because if you listen to it before then, you're a little too attached to it. And so you could trigger yourself. And then so the
Mhm.
2 weeks gives you enough time where it's like, okay, whatever that thing was that was like triggering me then, I'm not that triggered by it anymore. So I can like look at it with a more analytical.
Mhm.
And so listening back, I started to hear this these beautiful threads of patterns that wanted to come through. And so then it gives you a chance to explore that further. And so, I always tell people who say like I'm not a journaler and I'm like, well, maybe you just need to find a way that journaling works for you. And so voice noting is a really really good way for people to kind of access it in a way that maybe pen to paper doesn't feel safe yet. I always say though, once you do feel safe, going back to the pen to paper is so magical. And that's when the
Mhm.
portal to, ideas and creativity and like there's just so much beauty that comes through from pen to paper. And Erica Badu talks about, that magic in writing. And I think it's a portal to other worlds. It's a portal to, writers who have written these fantastical worlds often talk about how they don't feel like it was something that came from them.
Yeah.
They were just the medium. They were just the channel. They were open to what was coming through. And so I think what happens is first we have to heal our relationship with ourselves. And once we've done that, then we can be open to creating other worlds.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally agree with that. Well, I could certainly talk to you forever, but we cannot do that. But I do want to know what I ask everyone here at the Theater Freedom Project. What are you most excited about in life right now?
I'm most excited about time I have an abundance of time right now. And when I first started my business 5 years ago, I had an abundance of time. I was in a space of I was doing a lot of that healing work. And so time felt a little scary and I didn't feel like I had the resources. I didn't feel like I had the things that I wanted to do with that time. So now in a more abundant state, um, I feel and in a more healed state, I'm like, "Oh, this is exciting. Like, what do I wanna
Mhm.
do with this time? Do I want
Yeah.
to spend this time writing? Do I wanna spend this time reading? Do I wanna spend this time gardening? Do I wanna spend this time out walking? Do I wanna and so it's just, like, really giving myself permission to experiment with what feels good in my time, and so, yeah, I'm just, like, I haven't really rooted down to any routines. I'm feeling the desire for that to, like, finally take shape. I've been
Mhm.
experimenting since about June. So now I'm like, okay, in the next few months, December, January, I really wanna anchor in, like, what do my routines look like in this season?
Mhm.
And so I'm just excited to be able to spend that time and it feels really good.
Good. So, what, if anything, if you can offer a reminder or something to humanity, what would it be in order for people to give themselves permission to seek peace, to have joy? What would you tell them? What would you tell women right now who are listening?
Being kind to yourself. And so, you know I was talking about this to a client recently who is trying to work on her relationship with consuming food and alcohol. And she had a slip up and she was telling me how she was so excited about the fact that she had that slip up because it was the first time in so long that she was so kind to herself when that slip up happened. And so she
Mhm.
noticed that there wasn't an additional slip up later because what happens is we shame ourselves when we mess up and then so we're not perfect, so we're gonna mess up. And so when you give yourself permission to be kind to yourself in those mess ups, it actually makes it easier for you to make sustainable change because
I agree.
you're not afraid of failing. You're not afraid that you're gonna shame yourself. So if you do, it's just that's just it is a thing. It doesn't have to have a story. It doesn't mean that, the slip up makes you somebody who, as a vegan, if you have meat once, that doesn't make you not a vegan anymore. And so
Okay.
as a writer,
You could call me a dirty vegan.
yeah, as a writer, if you don't write one day, that doesn't make you not a writer. And so it's just not allowing your mess ups to be what identify you. And just allowing yourself to have grace in those moments when you
Yeah.
recognize I did something that I wish I hadn't done, and forgiving yourself and saying, okay, I did that thing and it is what it is. And now it's a new day. It's a new moment. It's a new time for me to choose. But just being kind to ourselves.
I totally agree. I mean, treat yourself like your own child. If you were to have a baby, how would you treat your baby? How did you treat your firstborn child? How do you treat your best friend? So be kind. What would you tell me if I came to you and was like, Esty, I just did, I messed up. I did X, Y, and Z. And you would be like, sister, it's okay. You can do it again. You can do, like you would just be so kind to me and have all of the support. So that's what we're saying to you, whoever is listening, is to be kind to yourself and give yourself some grace, honor yourself. Like, be okay with making a mistake. I love that. So, how can people work with you? Where
So
can they
there's
go
multiple.
to get all of your tools and tell us? And all of this is going to be in the show notes, of course, but how can people just get some of that yummy goodness of that neurospicy oracle?
So I have a free resource center in my world. It's called the Wisdom Lounge. And so it has worksheets, it has workshops, it has writing challenges, it has insights and tools, and new things are added each month. There's a mindful eating workshop. There's a
Mm,
meditation and writing workshop. There are poetry resources, the Overcoming Fear course that we did together.
mhm,
There's so many beautiful resources in there. And so I would start with that if you are new to my world. There's a 7-day email challenge that you can start with, what's called Nourish, and it helps you to really honor, what I was talking about with like the morning pages. And there's this framework I call the three, where it's mindfulness, movement, and morning pages. And those are the three things to start your day with, to start kind of like your mindful meeting with yourself each day. And it gives you really sustainable 5-minute things to kind of like to do each day, and then to build in that way. And so the Wisdom Lounge is what I would say first, and that's at stubuntu.com/community. And then if you're wanting to go deeper and do deeper work, you can get your free human design PDF on my website, and it gives you a 12-page resource where it shows you all about your type, your authority, and your strategy. And those are the first three things that we go through in human design.
mm.
And then if you want the longer report, you can get that. I think it's like $35 on my site. And then if you want to do a reading, you can do a human design reading with me. But if you really want that deeper transformational work, I do have a coaching program called Coming Home to Yourself,
Mm.
and that's a 6-week or 12-week journey. The 6-week journey is called the Gentle Return, and it's where we're just kind of exploring, we're just cultivating safety. And then I have the 12-week, which is the full map, and it's where we are first cultivating the safety using different tools, and then we're looking at the deeper shadow work. And then after that, we're looking at what are your intuitive gifts and how can you put those out into the world.
That sounds so good. Yes. So if you want to work with SD, and you should, all of this information is going to be in the show notes, and you can go to her website and take advantage of the free resources. Start somewhere. And yeah, so do you want to you can pull a card for me in back in the studio when we get off camera, but would you yeah, I just feel like I want mine private, but would you like to I mean, I don't know, I just
Fair, sis.
want that.
It's fair, sis.
Do you
She said, I
do
need the
you
magic. Let's do that.
Yeah, yeah. Do you wanna pull a card for the collective?
Sure. I will ask you to help me choose the deck that we use, though. So I have 3 different ones that we can choose from this morning. We have the Black Tarot deck,
Mm.
we have Faces of Oshun, and we have the Secrets of the Ancestor Oracle,
Oh
which is where
god,
we
I
met each
love
other,
that deck.
obviously.
I mean, I pull from that deck all the time. Let's pull from the Faces of Oshun.
Okay, beautiful. So before I pull for the collective, I'll just show the deck, the card I actually pulled for myself this morning, Oshun the creatrix, creativity, artistic
Ooh, that's
expression,
so
and
you.
breakthroughs. And it's really
So
great because
you.
in human design, in the transits, and that's a whole other thing that I can go on to forever, but I won't. But it's basically like the energetic weather. And the gate right now is 14, which is all about creativity. So I thought that was really cool to hold that one for
Mhm.
myself today.
Yeah, I'm not
All
surprised
right.
about that one.
All right. So we're just going to go ahead and close our eyes and take a moment and just extend our awareness to the beautiful, beautiful humans who are watching or listening, and just ask our ancestors and our Shun to come through and share with us some wisdom that they can take today. Beautiful.
This is
Okay.
gonna be good. I
So the
already felt
card
it.
we have today is Oshun of Boundaries. And we have
Mm,
a beautiful, beautiful image of a woman sitting with her hands in between her legs, some beautiful blues and purple colors. And then there's a lot of gold that's draping her shoulders as she looks down. There's a circle around her and then two pillars that are really, really sturdy there. And there's a lot of yellow roses at the bottom.
mm,
And so what's coming through for this is, cultivating this like deep sense of self trust. So that way, when you're holding and creating your boundaries, they are not actually weapons and they're not defensive. And I think that's
mm,
something that I've been, the word boundaries has been coming up a lot for me lately with clients and with friends. And I think that there was a time when we talked about boundaries in a way where we put the work on the other person, here's
mhm.
my boundary and don't cross it.
Yes.
And then when they crossed it, we were like, okay, this is now I can vilify you because you didn't honor my boundary. And I think that that approach is necessary when you're in crisis potentially and like you are needing and like you're not at capacity. You just can't do anything. But I think when you're in capacity, boundaries becomes a different thing. Boundaries are in the way that you respond to others. So, the example that I've been giving recently is, you tell somebody, I don't take phone calls after 10 o'clock. So don't call me
Mhm.
after 10 o'clock. And that's not a boundary. That's a rule that you're giving somebody. And the boundary is if somebody calls you at 10 o'clock, don't answer it.
Yeah, exactly. Simple as that.
And that's okay, and they eventually will either they'll stop calling or they'll leave a voicemail and you can check it in the morning, and so again, this is that self-trust piece of, like, when we put those boundaries as rules, it's because we don't trust ourselves to
Mhm.
honor the energetic boundaries we've created for ourselves, so then we get mad at the other person because we aren't trusting ourselves, so there's this work around, doing the energetic boundary work first. If you need to cut the energetic cord, if you need to put those hard boundaries in place, again, when you're in crisis or when it's an urgent situation, that's completely fine. But then once you're in a space where you're feeling safe, then it's time to actually reimagine those boundaries and make them softer. And it's about you and it's about, if people are triggering you, find out, okay, what is going on here? Why am I triggered by this person reaching out? Why am
Mhm.
I triggered by this person bringing up this topic? And how can I create these energetic boundaries within myself? And there's this coherence. And then people, for the most part, you're going to start to notice they're not going to even try to cross that boundary because energetically you're feeling rooted and safe and they know that they push and there's nothing's going to happen. There's not going to
Yeah.
be that response. And so it's about finding that, energetic balance and being liberated from having people and the way that they are interacting with life impact the way that you're interacting with life.
That was beautiful. That was absolutely amazing to look at that. I'm serious. I probably would have saw it a different way, but I needed that too. That was for me. That was
Mm.
for all of us. And I really appreciate that. Well, you know what? This has been such an amazing interview. Thank you for being my conscious connection for this month. And this month will close out the year for conscious connections, and I could not have had a more delightful being to sit with and to share space with and to learn from. And I really honor you. I honor your work. And I am just so glad that we are sisters. I really am. So we gotta
Thank
do
you.
some more work together. We gotta do something. I don't know,
I'm
it's a new
ready.
year coming up. Yeah, I know you're always ready.
I'm ready. I'm ready because I told you I'm always got the ideas. I'm like already. I'm like, ooh. So we did fear this last year.
Yeah.
Okay, so overcoming fear was the course. Maybe next year it's embracing freedom course.
Ooh, now that's a good one. That's a really, really nice one. I like that one. All right, my love. Well, thank you so much for tuning in. You can find all of Esty's information in the show notes. And I hope today's conversation reminds you that you are not separate from source, that you are your own. Your human design is something that's beautiful, that it drives you, that it gives you purpose. I hope you learn that you can be gentle with yourself and that freedom is ease. It is not fear. It is no separation, that you are not alone and that your ancestors are always with you, that we live in purpose and we live in love. So be sure to like and subscribe to this channel and share this channel with someone or this episode with someone who just needs a little bit of light in their life. This is where fear ends and freedom begins. Until the next time, I love you. Peace and love.